This program is a Creative Magic Network and Maura Sweeney collaboration. Hey guys, December 3rd is the deadline to enter the contest to win Lance Secretan's powerful book on inspiring leadership, titled The Spark, the Flame, and the Torch. Inspire yourself, inspire others, inspire the world. And the best part, the book is in hardcover. That's right, hardcovers are hard to get these days. So if you haven't already, you can enter the contest by going to frederickbuy.com. That's Frederick with a C, buy like bye-bye.com, and enter your email in the pop-up that will appear at the top of your screen. Have a great episode.
Welcome to the Maura Sweeney Podcast. Maura is an international speaker, Huffington Post contributor, and the trademarked ambassador of happiness. In 10 minutes or less, Maura weaves clever anecdotes, insightful questions, and personal stories to challenge your mindsets and enable you to live happier from the inside out. Here's Maura with today's podcast for you.
Are you giving thanks for unexpected gifts? Well, if you're on a path to living happy from the inside out, today may be your day to do just that very thing. Giving thanks for unexpected gifts. When I say unexpected, I'm not talking about those pretty gifts that you open up and they're so beautiful and you see a gift inside that is what your heart was always waiting for and it's just wonderful. I'm talking instead about gifts that come in disguises that appear as loss, grief, maybe heartache, pain, and so many other things that we find extremely discomforting. Well, as I was preparing today's podcast, I found myself suddenly transported to an earlier era and time in my life. I was probably in my early 40s, living a quiet life in suburbia, raising a young daughter, helping my husband with work, and at the same time, living a life that was completely different than what it is today. I spent a lot of my time in church. I was around Christian girlfriends. I really was on a path where I wanted to know God better. I wanted to grow spiritually. And where to go to grow spiritually but to church? What happened over the course of a very short period of time was something that appeared to be just the opposite of what I was seeking. And it kind of turned my entire life upside down. For example, we had some religious leaders and elders, people older than I, who I had always looked up to, assuming that they were more knowledgeable, more mature, more spiritually ascended, let's say, or enlightened than I was. I also had several Christian girlfriends. So if you want to imagine just living a very quiet life, I almost want to say a childlike life, and suddenly all things broke loose. You might say all hell broke loose. What I found was that people who normally preached kindness and wisdom and the way of Christ started to find themselves in different situations. And as a result, their actions ended up exuding some of the opposite manifestations, let's say. For example, when they were personally pressed, they did just the opposite of what they were preaching. And I thought, oh my goodness, these are people that talk about forgiveness and they don't want to forgive. They speak about servitude, but they want to press down or oppress other people. They think about or speak about being humble, and yet they are very full of pride. They talk about grace, but they have no interest in delivering it. These things suddenly made every idea in my mind about Christianity, or what I had put forth as Christianity, and my hopes of growing within Christianity, just absolutely on its head. And I remember being in situations where I thought, how come I can't get these people to forgive one another, to forgive me, to extend grace. It was just shocking to me, but so much to the point where I remember feeling like I was so full of grief. In fact, if somebody were to open my chest at that point, they would have probably seen just grief destroying my heart. And I remember thinking, where can I go with this incredible grief? It's just terrible. It was like being among the living dead without dying. And beyond that, I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I have a young growing daughter. She's looking to me. She can see everything that's going on with me and around me. I need to find a way to get through this and out of this situation so I can be a good example for her and for her future. Well, it just turned out that there happened to be a young woman who was living with us at that time. She was probably a hair's breadth away, enough to know me decently well, but also to be around me at the same time that I was going through this incredible grief. If I could give you a picture of it too, I imagine myself as a former tree, even an old tree that had been around for a long time. It had lots of branches on the tree, lots of green leaves, and lots of living things on that tree. And yet, because of life circumstances, it was as if things had come along and cut my tree down practically to the roots. I was nothing more than a stump. And I remember feeling denuded socially, spiritually, and in many other ways that I probably can't put a word to. Well, as it turns out, this young woman happened to say to me one day when she greeted me in the kitchen, she said, Maura, did it ever occur to you that what's happening right now is actually a gift in disguise? Well, you can imagine, I was not feeling it as any sort of a gift. But she said, Maura, there is something in the midst of this that is going to be a gift for you. And she said it's going to help you to minister to other people. Well, to me, it was even a partial word of encouragement, and I did take it to heart. It wasn't then and there that I felt better, but I will tell you now, many years later, that I did come through that process, and I came through it a far bigger and better and happier and more peaceful individual. And I want to tell you why. Going through that very difficult time, which in my case ended up allowing me to explore feelings, perceptions of myself that I really maybe didn't want to look at, maybe where I saw myself as small and vulnerable, where I had fears of being rejected, and all of a sudden I felt very rejected, where maybe I never wanted to be exposed, and I felt exposed, maybe where I was afraid of loss, and yet was experiencing loss. Going through that process not only allowed me to explore parts of my personality that I never looked at, but in the process, I was able to do the same when looking at other people. Seeing myself through a new set of eyes and viewing my own fears, I was also able to look at others that maybe I previously had placed on pedestals, and I was able to see their fears as well. I was able to determine that in the same ways I needed to grow, they were on their own path of growing. It might not have been exactly the same as mine, but even as I learned to extend grace to myself, I learned to extend grace to others. I went from feeling like a scapegoat to becoming a peacemaker. I originally felt rejected, but eventually I felt very freed. Learning about the human condition, myself, why others do what they do and react as they do, actually ended up freeing me from so much that I would have never been able to learn perhaps through another way of learning. Somehow all of those lessons ended up in my energetic body. I now carry them with me everywhere I go. So what does this mean for you? Do you feel like you're walking through a shadow of death? I want you to know something. Let me be the first one to tell you, don't lose hope. You will eventually emerge. You'll find light at the end of your tunnel, joy at the end of your sorrow, gain at the end of your loss, blessing at the end of your supposed curse. You'll find peace at the end of anxiety. You'll find expansion at the end of your limitation. And probably what ends up being the best gift of all is that you will find love at the end of your fear. I'd like for you, when you have a few minutes today, go look for 2 additional sources that I have online that would be available for you to continue with this whole idea of giving thanks for those unexpected gifts. The first is a blog that I wrote. You can find it on Huffington Post under my name, and it's called The Flip Side of Giving Thanks. And the other is on YouTube under Maura For You, and it's entitled, Do You Know What a Gem You Are? Underneath your fear, behind the gift that's currently presenting itself to you, is a gift that is known as the bigger, the better, the happier, and the more peaceful and expansive you. I hope and pray that you will find that very self, because I know that you too will end up being a gift to this world. That's been my thought for today. But before we go, let's hold on, because someone else wants to share with us what makes them happy from the inside out too.
Dominic from Manchester, United Kingdom. Micro adventures, meeting new people and getting outside and having good conversation. That's what makes me happy.
For more insights on living happy from the inside out, subscribe to this podcast. To learn more about Maura, visit her MauraForYou.com website, where you'll find videos, blogs, books, and the Foundations of Happiness self-study e-course. Maura, 4, letter U.com, where Maura is always for you.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. How'd you like it? How did you like it? I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody out there, and also everybody who contribute to our Patreon page. You are really helpful to this show, and we are grateful for your help. In case you're wondering, Patreon is a simple way for you to contribute to the podcast and get super cool exclusive rewards in return. I promise you will love the perks. Our Patreon page is at frederickby.com. That's Frederick with a C. buylikebabai.com, and click Patreon in the header. The money is used to cover our production costs and enhancements. It is also used to cover our editing time and sharing to different podcast channels. You can contribute for as low as $1, and you can even choose your platform, either Podbean or Patreon.com. See ya next time.